everybody to the Select Board meeting of Monday, October 14th. It's Indigenous Peoples Day, and we are here. I am Jeannie Jenkins. I have the pleasure of chairing this board, and I'll ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy White.
Hi, good evening, Sarah Perrin.
Hi, I'm Ed Woods.
Clark Adams.
Jean Connor.
Super. And also with us tonight, we have Town Manager Stu Hurt. We have Nancy Lively, who takes excellent minutes every single meeting. And we have Josh Boucher, who is filming this for Cat TV, which we very much appreciate. I want to start tonight by asking for an adjustment to the agenda. And I apologize to anyone who came for the Ben High discussion. I'd like to ask for a motion to remove Ben High from the agenda for tonight.
So move.
Second.
Great. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right.
I'll ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves.
Thank you, Josh.
All right, we'll move on now. All right, so we'll go back to the regular agenda. Ed, would you lead us in the pledge?
I will.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Ed.
Yes.
And Jean, would you read the vision statement that guides our work?
Happy to. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, on to the consent agenda. Because there was one person missing from each of the meetings that we have minutes for, I'm just going to take them each set of minutes separately, and then we'll do the warrants separately, okay? So let's start with the executive session minutes of October 7th, where Nancy was absent. Could I have a motion to accept the executive session minutes of October 7th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please say nay. Any abstentions?
I will abstain as I left early.
Okay, so 2 abstentions. All right. All right, next, the regular minutes of September 23rd, where Sarah was absent. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I apologize because, as everyone knows, I was sitting in a hotel in Europe, so there was intermittent reception at my end. But I recall there was a plan to do an addendum that reflected the entire conversation that's addressed in line 35.
So that would not be in these minutes. That would be in the September 9th minutes. So this one, this is in this meeting, line 35 states your interest in having that done. So it would be
Right.
in the other minutes,
There
okay?
was specific commentary that would happen. I don't see that in here, that there would be an amendment
So-
to minutes for that meeting.
All right, but does that capture your concern?
No, not completely, not accurately.
All right, so let's add on 36A, I guess, that I was going to follow up, and we would amend the September 9th meeting minutes. Is that right? Is that the right one? Yes, September 9th.
So 99 meetings to be addressed.
Yes. Any other comments?
I do.
Yes.
Let's see. Let me make sure I got the right ones. Are we doing the 23rd right now?
We are.
Okay. Line 39 through 41. I'm sorry, no, 42 and 43, line 42 and 43. I just didn't know if that should distinguish that that meeting was an executive session meeting, the September 16th meeting that's referenced. I didn't know if that was important or not. To me, it sort of was, but maybe it isn't.
I don't know. Nancy, do you usually distinguish between executive session and
I
regular?
don't believe I do, but I
Okay.
certainly can.
I mean, do you want it to?
I think just for clarity, it might be
Okay.
a good idea. Okay.
It's executive session.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, sure.
I think that's a good point, as I don't abstain when I can watch the meeting, but when I'm not an executive, when it's an executive session, I do abstain if I'm not present, if that makes sense to people.
Okay, any other? Okay, hearing none with those amendments, all those in favor of the September 23rd minutes, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Then let's go to the September 9th meeting. Do I have a motion to, so Jean, you were absent at this one. Do I have a motion to, for the purposes of discussion, to accept the regular minutes of September 9th?
So moved for the purposes of discussion.
Second.
Okay. All right, discussion. I want to start, I think, by just saying I did have a chance to run the idea of adding language. I actually drafted some language but did not share it with council. But I did run the idea of adding language to the minutes that reflected a select board member's feelings during the meeting. And I was reminded by town council that the purpose of the minutes are to capture the major lines of discussion rather than being a transcript, and that the purpose of having CAT TV film this is to provide a visual transcript, visual and verbatim transcript of what happened. So I did not, in fact, add anything. I did not add an addendum given that, and my sense is that it is captured verbatim on film, and that it is also noted in the minutes of September 23rd. Others?
I have no comment.
All right, hearing no other discussion, all those in favor of the September 23rd minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Who just said aye? Sarah, Jeannie, and Ed. All right. All those opposed, please say nay. And those abstaining, please indicate. Clark, Jean, Nancy.
I'm sorry, isn't it the 9th? The minutes of the 9th?
Yes.
Okay.
You said the
I
23rd.
think you said the 23rd.
All right, we're talking about the 9th. I am
For
so sorry.
clarity, we are on the 9th.
Okay, the motion was for the 9th, yes?
Yes.
My apologies. Okay, so we are 3-3. What should we
These
do?
minutes are really pesky.
All right, well, I guess we're not accepting those minutes. All right, let's move on. Warrants. For the purposes of discussion, could I have a motion to accept the warrants?
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, yes, I have a question here. Item number 401841.
Can you give us a page?
That would be page 2 of 14.
Okay. And what is it again?
It is item number 401841.
Okay, thank you.
And I see, seems to be a recurrent payment, and I was hoping somehow we get a actual balance of what we're paying continuously to the Bennington County Regional. That's a substantial amount of money there, $32,887. And it seems to me we're always paying some pretty high numbers to them. So I'd like to know, what's total? What are we paying them totally during the year and for what?
In that particular case, this is the Bennington County Solid Waste Alliance, which is what the letters stand for. The Regional Commission acts as our agent, so to speak, for 13 towns in the county that operate the solid waste operations, both at our transfer station and others throughout the county. Bennington, because we have the highest population, the cost is based on a per capita use. We pay, in this case, about $97,000 a year for that particular service.
And this is a quarterly payment?
Yes.
So that would make sense. And the Gore Road grant?
The Gore Road grant is I believe, a highway grant looking at issues along Gore Road with regard to potentially drainage, I'm guessing there, because we do have some issues with drainage along Gore Road. So I'm sort of guessing on that one, but I think that's what I remember talking about.
All right, can you give us, I mean, I know none of us were able to confer with you today, which is usually when we finally get our questions to you. Can you bring that back next time?
Thank you, Stu.
Thank you. Any other questions on the warrants? Let's see, Stu, I had asked you about on page 5, there are what look to be several net metering reimbursements. One is 401863, which is, it says net metering solar incentive, which is $17,000, but not a negative $17,000. And then we have electric charges under 401870 for Green Mountain Power. We have, looks like reimbursements of $19,000 in some, $2,000 in some, and then on the next page, I think there's yet another one.
Correct. We pay ER Bennington Solar a reduced fee for electricity. They cover most of our electric meters with their service. In return for that, Green Mountain Power reduces or pays us back a credit because we are using solar power based on the numbers you see throughout, some $19,000, $21,000, $22,000 perhaps in last month's electric bills.
Okay. Anything else in the warrants? Thank you. All right, hearing no more discussion. All those in favor of adopting the warrants, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next up is public comment. And we have a bunch of people, which is great. Just a reminder, please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Comments should be for the benefit of all. Please make sure that you remain civil. When you finish speaking, you can use either microphone you wish. When you finish speaking, please sit down. If there are responses that we can give, if that makes sense, then we will do that when everyone has finished their public comments, okay? All right, so let's start with Clark Adams on public communication.
Mixing it up.
And 3 minutes, and when you get
Oh, sorry, yes.
the 30-second warning, I'll put up my nasty sign.
It's my favorite part.
Good evening. My name is Clark Adams. I'm a resident of Bennington, Vermont. In case you hadn't figured out, I'm also a select board member. There's a quote that I want to use here, and I think it's applicable due to some communication issues that have been relayed to me by members of the public. So, extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice, Moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. And I bring that up because I'm continuously meeting members of the public who express to me some very serious concerns about the leadership of this town and how they perceive they're treated or listened to or not listened to. Because of that, people stop me on the street, people call my home, people email me, talk about what's on their mind. Well, I'm here to tell every last person here, I am always available to speak to anyone at any time, anywhere. You can email me if you feel the need. And for those of you who are interested in my email address, cadamspac@gmail.com. And anybody who wants to know that I'm speaking with the public about their concerns, they're welcome to ask. And there's one person in particular I kind of would like to hear from. If you're out there, give me a call. Talk to me. I'm listening. Excuse me. Some of the issues that I keep hearing from the public is a matter of mutual trust. A lot of people just plain don't trust the people who run this town. Why? We'll have to ask them. There are people who feel that they are not responsive to their inquiries. Some people feel the responses they receive are evasive, if not duplicitous. And as leaders, the number one thing to be a leader is you have to be willing to lead. And sometimes when you're a leader, you have to stand up and take the hit. You make hard decisions, you make hard calls, and you have to be willing to stand by those hard calls. You can't be hiding behind officiousness and obfuscation and stacks of federal regulations and state
30 seconds, Clark.
But in closing, call me anytime. I'll speak to anyone, anywhere, and I make no apologies for the fact that I will speak to anyone, anywhere, and that I will not bow down in my belief that every person in this town should be respected and listened to, and everyone in this town in a leadership position should be approachable and open and responsive to the people of Bennington's concerns.
Thank you very much. Next up is Hometown Heroes. Is it Mona or Maura?
Hi, Mona Gothier, Bennington, and I just wanted to put a thank you out to the people that formed the committee and took action on the Hometown Heroes and the town for doing such a great job of getting it up. My second thing is, I have a question on the charter. Do the townspeople get to vote on that?
Yes.
We do.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Can I just make a quick comment? And the town may be aware, one of the banners was not fixed to the pole. Did anybody catch
Yeah,
that?
we've had a couple of problems with
Okay,
that,
good,
and
okay.
as soon as we find them, we try to get there. and
Okay,
fix.
I just noticed it when I was driving by the other day.
Great. Thank you very much, Mona. Let's see, Town Plan, Ned Perkins.
Yeah, Ned Perkins, Bennington. The most recent Bennington Down Plan was adopted in October 2015 with a stipulation written into it that it remains in effect for 5 years, after which it will need to be updated, which gave it a self-imposed expiration date of October 2020. Now, even if the plan had not said this, state law proclaims that all plans expire after 8 years unless readopted, which means the plan certainly expired in 2023. Now, Bennington held 2 public hearings in January of 2018 to consider, as it was written in the warnings, in the agendas, and in the minutes, a town plan amendment. That was the energy amendment. On January 22nd of that year, Jim Carroll made a motion before this board, and I quote, "I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the amendment to the town plan as written." And the select board voted unanimously with Donald Campbell, Jim Carroll, Carson Thurber, Jeannie Jenkins, Chad Gordon, and Gene Connor all voting in favor to approve the motion that evening. Now, the assertion that the Bennington County Regional Commission could somehow manipulate this plainly worded vote by our select board into a readoption of the plan and unilaterally extend its expiration date is absolutely ludicrous. It vastly oversteps the statutes which limit the role of a regional planning commission to review and consultation, and stipulate that only the legislative body of a municipality can adopt or readopt a plan, and that an amendment doesn't extend the expiration date. Let's face it, the 2018 Energy Amendment to the Plan was just that, an amendment. There never was any discussion in any select board meeting that could in any way imply that the town voted to readopt its plan. This board needs to address the reality that the Bennington Town Plan has expired. This may be an inconvenient
30 seconds, Ned.
This may be an inconvenient truth, but it's what the record clearly shows. And I'll give you a detailed document.
Thank you, Ned. We'll share this with everyone. Okay, thank you. All right, next up, let's see, I think it's things that are coming up soon. Harvest Fest, Keith, Carrie?
Hi, I am Keith Carey with the BBC and the Gamers Grotto. I just wanted to remind everyone that this year is the 3rd annual Harvest Fest, Saturday, October 19th from 10 a.m. until 5 p.m. The streets will be closed from the Four Corners to Valentine Street and from Pleasant Street to Main Street along School Street. We have a ton of events happening. There's over 90 vendors, a great mix of food, crafts, and nonprofits. There'll be a magic show, a raptor demonstration, the medieval jousters will be doing a performance again, cloggers, and I've been told that there might be a secret flash mob happening. I don't know if that's actually going to be. We'll find out. It's a great day for friends and family. There's a lot of kids' activities, crafting, pumpkin decorating, and a goat petting zoo. We're expecting a bus from New York, so there's going to be a lot of people. So I really hope that Bennington can come out, welcome all the visitors to the community, and hope they come back. The weather is supposed to be fantastic, so love to see a great day and a great event.
Super. Thank you. And that's this Saturday. Yes, this Saturday, 10 to 5. Excellent. All right. And then let's see, Jenny Dewar to talk about more festivities.
Just for change. Hi, I'm Jenny Dewar. Live in Pownell, but I'm here for the Apple Barn. I'm glad that Harvest Fest continues. I started that 3 years ago, so I'm glad that's something that they kept. So the Apple Barn and Bake Shop, located at 2604 US Route 7 South, is excited to announce its final festival of the season, Spirits of Samhain. After a summer full of nearly monthly festivals, this event promises to keep the fun rolling with family-friendly activities, tasty treats, and a variety of unique vendors. The festival will be held behind the barn in the field with beautiful views on October 26th, 2024, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. This event is free and open to all. We've adjusted the time to better coordinate with other local events, including the Trunk or Treat festivities at Pownell Elementary and Coggins. We encourage you to make a day of it, start at the barn, and then head over to these fantastic community events. Inspired by Samhain, a Gaelic festival marking the end of the harvest season, our Vermont version brings a bit of Celtic charm with a Halloween twist. Friendly witches will be wandering the grounds, and both vendors and attendees are encouraged to dress up in their best costumes. We're proud to support Vermont 4-H Clubs as our featured nonprofit for this festival. They'll be setting up their shooting sports trailer featuring an enclosed air rifle shooting range where kids ages 8 and up and adults can try out their marksmanship skills. Instructors and youth members from the Pownell Valley 4-H Sharpshooters will be on hand to guide new shooters through safety and marksmanship. Bennington County is home to 2 active 4-H clubs, the Pownell Valley 4-H Sharpshooters and the Young Explorers. Activities for all ages, there's plenty of fun in store for everyone. Here's a sneak peek. The Corn Maves will be transformed into a spooky adventure you won't want to miss. World of Wonder Entertainment will be joining us with some magical surprises. And of course, we'll have a fantastic selection of familiar and new vendors offering all kinds of treats and treasures. Warm up with a hot cider to welcome the season, or enjoy some lemonade and ice cream to savor those last tastes of summer. It's, again, Saturday, October 26th from 12 to 5 at the Apple Barn.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right. And let's see, Michael McDonough to talk about the Historic Preservation Commission's walking tour.
Michael McDonough, and I chair the Historic Preservation Commission, and I'm here to offer another plug. This Saturday, dovetailing on Harvest Fest, the Historic Preservation Commission is holding a walking tour of the very historic Pleasant Street. And I'll explain why that's of interest to us, but we hope it will be of interest to many people. We will gather at 1 o'clock at Thatcher House, which is the large house at the corner of Pleasant Street and School Street, somewhat directly across from the bus depot. And we will traverse the street from essentially School Street on up through past the Olin Scott House, which is at the eastern end of Pleasant Street, and turning the corner to discuss what's going on at Ben High, which is also another historic building on Pleasant Street. We will be having members of the Planning Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, some of you can understand why I did that, who will be leading the tour. I will not be, and we're hoping that will help with attendance. And we will in particular be visiting the Episcopal Church, and members of the church will be giving us a presentation not only on the building, but of the wonderful stained glass windows that are there, which were actually funded by people who were residents of Pleasant Street. And we will continue on up through the street. Hale Resources will be joining us to talk about the work that is planned at Thatcher House and about the work that has been completed and is ongoing at a few other Hale Resource properties, which represent really an amazing transformation that is happening to Pleasant Street. And the Historic Preservation Commission wants the community to understand the significance and importance of that street in our history and because of the architecture that is there. And we ultimately are making noise about Pleasant Street because it is our intent, and we are working towards having Pleasant Street nominated to the National Register of Historic Districts to make that significance of particular note. And I would note that we have a number of historic districts and historic properties within the town of Bennington, and we're looking forward to adding Pleasant Street. So hope to see you all. Thanks.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to share? Yes, Deb, come on up.
Debbie Matt, Bennington. Am I allowed to talk about the Ben High at this point?
Yes, it's not on the agenda.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to clarify it before I got started. I'd like to know why it was removed from the agenda. I'd like to know exactly how much more money is needed for the project, and what is the cutoff or the end of the ARPA funds that have to be spent. There must be a deadline there. And why are we paying rent when we're not using the building? And how much a month, aside from paying the taxes up there and paying rent on a building that we're not using, and I don't know if it's fit to be used? Is there other money going into that? Thank you.
Thank you. I think I got all of those, but, okay. Let's see. So the charter question got answered, yes. Oh, Kelly, yes. Come on up, sorry.
Kelly Carroll from Bennington. Seems like everything is going on Saturday, and I just have to tell you, Michael McDonough is selling himself short, because if anybody ever gets a chance to walk around anywhere in downtown Bennington and listen to him talk about the history, that is something that the town should capitalize on and try to offer as a tour for tourists. But I'm here to talk about the Walloomsac Walk, which is also Saturday, October 19th at 9 a.m. The Walloomsac River and Downtown Walk will include a presentation of the Bennington Unsung Hero Award. And this month's award is going to Lorraine Donatelli and Jack Rossiter Munley, who actually happens to be here with us this evening. And they are going to receive this month's Unsung Hero Award as we celebrate their vision and dedication to the creation of the community cafe that opened its doors on January 4th, 2023. They first utilized outdoor space at GBIX and now meet Saturdays from 1:30 to 3 indoors at St. Peter's Episcopal Church. It's grown in the number of volunteers and guests, and it now for 2 years serves as a gathering place to eat, enjoy music, and share conversation for over 150 individuals each week. And if you ever think that one person can't make a difference, even though this month we're celebrating 2, I just encourage you to look at Jack and Lorraine, because they've made a significant difference. This walk will also provide an opportunity for the community to have informal conversation with candidates for local Vermont House, Senate, and Bennington High Bailiff positions ahead of the November 5th election. Right now, we're planning on having the walk attended by 10 of the candidates running for office. So for Vermont Senate, we have Seth Bongartz, Joseph Joe Jarvis, Robert Rob Plunkett, and Lawrence Spike Whitmore. For Vermont House, we have Jim Carroll, Jonathan Cooper, William Will Greer, Mary Morrissey, and Michael Nigro. And for High Bailiff, we'll have Will Greer and Andrew Shaw. So the walk begins at 9 a.m. at Rotary Bennington Station Park on Depot Street, and it will follow the Walloomsac River Walk to School Street and then loop around and conclude at the VFW Post 1333 on 137 North Street for discussion and conversation. It's going to be a beautiful day. I encourage you to come out and walk with us, and if walking is too much, just meet us at the VFW. We have invited Democrats, Republicans, and independent candidates, and it's your opportunity to talk with them one-on-one or in small groups. The Walloomsac Walks take place on the 3rd Saturday of each month. This is our last month starting at 9 o'clock. Next month we start at 10. The walks are friendly. They're for people of all ages, and they're a collaboration between the Riverwalk Committee, the Better Bennington Corporation, the North Bennington Outdoor Sculpture Show, NBOSS, and participants can view some of those sculptures on the walk, and it's going to be a beautiful day, so come and join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly. Anyone else?
And congratulations, Jack.
That's good. Anyone else want to speak? All right. So in terms of response, I think we did the charter, the committee will bring their recommendations back to the select board. The select board will vote on whether to leave the recommendations as is, change them, not include some, and then whatever our decision is, then what remains of the charter amendments will then be put on the ballot for the entire town to vote on. Okay, and then it goes to the legislature that can do what they wish with it as well.
And it's the vote in March, right?
Yes, it's the vote in March.
It's the ballot in March,
yes,
not November.
Not in a couple days, yes. All right, sure. And I want to echo, Michael, I'm sorry that you're not going to be leading the walk on Pleasant Street, because one does learn an amazing amount of information when you lead a walk. In terms of select board, please know that every single select board member has a select board email, and you are welcome and do email us. You also find us in the frozen food aisle of Hannaford and Price Chopper, which is great, and we see you out and about in town. And we do appreciate you speaking with us how in whatever way you're comfortable, whether that's over email. If you call the office, they will have us call you if you want a phone call. So know that that is possible as well. So, you know, it is something that we take great pride in, and we spend a fair amount of our week responding to people's concerns, as does town staff. And I do know that when we do the town manager evaluation every year, and we talk with community members, one of the things that they talk about is how accessible town staff are and willing to share information with them. So please know that we are all very, very interested in having those conversations. Anything else? Anything you want to follow up on the charter or town plan?
I can briefly say on the town plan that the Regional Commission in 2018 did approve the entire town plan and extend the deadline to 2026. That was a decision of the Regional Commission. Mr. Perkins and his comments notwithstanding, the town plan is considered valid by the Regional Commission. It's considered valid by the state of Vermont. And we are moving forward as if the town plan is valid.
Thank you.
Because it is. Okay. All right. All right. So let's move on. And thank you for everyone that came tonight to share information. That was very, very wonderful. All right. So next on the agenda is a potential public hearing on emergency health order. And my understanding is that we do not need to have that public hearing, so Paul Dansrow is here to take us where we need to go. Yes?
Good evening. Thank you. Paul Dansrow, Building Inspector, Fire Marshal, Deputy Health Officer. Just want to bring the board aware, and for the purpose of this is provide an update on an emergency health order that was issued for 215 North Branch Street, and request the Select Board make a motion to affirm the emergency health order as it's written. Within the packet, there's a summary sheet that I'll just review briefly. Also included was the complete emergency health order and the enclosure to the emergency health order, which was a notice of violation that had been issued. So on 9/24/2024, notice of violation was issued. The owner of record at 215 North Branch Street for violations of land use development regulation 3.13, primarily for inoperable camper RV, garbage, junk, and debris on the property. On 9/25, the owner met with our office on location, stated that she was unable at that time to remove all the garbage, junk, debris from property, and was requesting if the town of Bennington would be able to do a cleanup at owner's expense on the property. On 10/8, emergency health order was issued. and a notice of hearing was served to the owner of record. The owner of record did not elect to have a full hearing at that time. Property cleanup is scheduled to be conducted this Wednesday, 10/16, to remove all garbage, junk, debris from the property. The inoperable RV camper, though, is not going to include it within the emergency health order, and we're still pursuing other methods to address that issue. Subject to any questions, just request the town select board make a motion to affirm the emergency health order as written.
Any questions, or is someone comfortable making a motion?
Questions? You want to make a motion?
I was going to ask a question unless we need a motion first.
Can we ask you questions and then we'll make a motion? Yeah.
The property owner is asking the town to pay for it?
No, that's not what it says,
No,
Nancy.
it says the reverse.
It will be, okay.
It will be at her expense.
At owner's expense, correct. So any costs incurred would be held against the property
Okay.
for collection of it.
And when someone notices something like this and reports it, or if the town sees it, from the time the process starts until cleanup can happen, how long is that usually?
Can be anywhere from 2 weeks to 18 months, based
18
on,
months.
depending on what method and what tools are used. Now, the extent of if something's a public health hazard, an emergency health order is issued, that is one tool that can be done, is typically the quicker method to doing it, and within probably a 2 to 4 week period, it can be addressed.
I don't know if this, Mike, if this is something the Charter Committee could look at. We dealt with this in my neighborhood for close to 10 years before the town could finally go in and clean it up. And for a year after that, we had huge rats running around the neighborhood. And I know depending on the process, I just wonder if we could change something in the charter, and I don't know if anybody here knows, to shorten that process.
I was going to say, our office has met with Charter Review Subcommittee, and different points on that were addressed at different times. Short answer would be within the system as it is right now. I don't think there's anything that would be added into a charter that would change something. That's just my opinion, though. I know this Charter Subcommittee is going to bring forth findings for the board.
I wonder, just a follow-up to Nancy and then a second question. Following up to Nancy's question, is this one happening fairly quickly because the owner is cooperating?
That's also part of it, correct.
Yeah, so a level of cooperation has something to do with the speed. Thank you. And
that's a fair statement, I should say, sorry.
Yeah, I just sort of wanted to make that point if that was the case. You mentioned in the emergency health order that the RV is not a part of the emergency health order. Is there no public danger or no danger with that RV sitting there?
With garbage, trash, junk, debris, a public health hazard is easily, readily available. The next door neighbor has been dealing with, from their statement, 20 rats they have killed at least on their property within the last 2 weeks. So that drives towards it. The vehicle itself, just sitting on a property, though, it's harder. Well, to make the argument that it's a public health hazard is not necessarily one that's an easy one or easy enough argument or link to make on that.
So I guess
there is the other methods with the notice of violation for zoning. It would be more effective tool pursuing through that manner for that vehicle.
So I guess just to be clear, because it's referenced in this, doesn't mean that it was ever a part of this emergency order.
The original notice of violation that was issued had it written in there, correct? But it was excluded from the emergency health order.
Thank you, Paul.
This one is titled an emergency health order. Are there other types that are not considered emergent?
So if it wasn't an emergency health order, the other thing would be just a normal health order, or excuse me, yes, a health order that could be brought forward. In that case, it would be something that our office would present to the town select board at a scheduled meeting, and then from that, actions could be done, from that forward. The emergency health order, because of the imminent nature of garbage just sitting there and the nuisance it's attracting, and and the health hazard. That's why I went through the emergency health order. The key difference is on an emergency health order, once the emergency health order is issued, it goes into effect. So effective on the 10/4 is when it was issued is the effective date, and then action could be taken from that. Whereas on a regular health order, you'd have to wait until it was executed through proceedings and then take action.
So even though this one seems to be moving along swimmingly, if it was, there are emergency health orders that take 18 months?
No, there's other
Okay.
to Nancy's point, other methods or other things that
Okay.
go through.
It's not the
notice of violation.
Okay.
And then if a notice of violation is not complied with, go to file a complaint with the courts. And then, well, I say the 18 months because then unfortunately it's at the scheduling of the courts as to when a court action could be taken. You know, I've seen them, to Nancy's point, some have been, 30, 60, 90 days from, requesting a complaint in court. Others have gone up to 18 months, so that's where that came from. Sorry, not the health order piece of it. Sorry for the confusion on that.
Clark?
I have a question as related to this vehicle, the inoperable RV. Just in general, inoperable vehicles I've seen parked around town in one spot for protracted periods of time. What's the criteria for that to become an issue, or is it an issue?
So, short answer would be, I guess, where is it located? Is it on public property? Is it on town property? Or is it on private residence? The criteria for inoperable junk vehicles is in the Land Use Development Regulation, where it defines each of them. Paraphrasing on it would be an uninspected, unregistered, inoperable vehicle, and inoperable being defined, it's clearly not one that's in running safe condition. That's what we would go off of.
So that's even on private property?
Even on private property.
Okay.
Unless it's in a garage or stored in a manner.
Okay. Well, I actually want to talk to you about something later on with this issue. Thank you.
Any other questions before we take a motion? Would someone like to make the motion that the select board affirm the emergency health order?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
All right, that brings us to the traffic calming draft policy and data update. So the plan was not to take any action tonight. This is the first time that we have a fair amount of data presented to us, including sort of a good outline of the policy. So the thought is that we would move into full discussion next time, and then it would be, 2 hearings to finalize the policy and also to determine whether we want to put something in the budget for this year to address traffic calming. I will note that staff, and I say staff, but I think, Jonah, that's probably you, have been making sure that all the comments about traffic signs on corners or other things that would be low-cost remedies for unsafe intersections or ways to encourage traffic calming. Those are being kept held in one place, and staff will look at those to see whether they can address those issues. People have been very explicit, which is really great. So if it turns out we can't do something there, then, we'll let you know why. But they'll look at what can be done and address as many of those low-hanging fruit ideas as possible. So I think what would be great tonight is if Dan, I think you were the appointed one. If you could help walk us through the policy first, and then just through the data that's been collected. And all of this information is on the website if you don't have a packet with you. And it's really thorough, which is super. So, do you want to start with the traffic calming policy?
Sure. I will, and I can't take credit for this policy. This was drafted by Mark Anders from the Bennington County Regional Commission. I did offer some suggestions, but this is largely a policy drafted by the Regional Commission, and it is just a draft, and obviously we're not anywhere near discussing adoption. But essentially, the traffic calming policy is a way for folks in neighborhoods impacted by speeding to bring those issues to the attention of town staff. It's a process, a formal process where a group of people living in a neighborhood negatively impacted by speed can submit their concerns. The initial concern is then evaluated by staff, town staff and BCRC to determine if it's a possible candidate for traffic calming. Once that initial review is done, in order to ensure that the folks in the neighborhood would like to see traffic calming happen, because as many people know, traffic calming is not universally popular, so we want to make sure that the neighborhood is prepared and willing to have traffic calming done, because it is an effort to study it and design it and then install it. So the first step is to report it. Second step is for the town to take an initial look. The third step is a petition would then be submitted to the neighbor or to the neighborhood that's complaining, and we would look for a percentage of that neighborhood households to sign that petition. So we would then move forward into then the town and BCRC would move forward with data collection and evaluation of possible traffic calming measures based on four different criteria. Once those measures are proposed, there would then be a second petition submitted to the neighborhood households so that they can evaluate that and make a determination of whether or not that neighborhood would like to proceed with those specific traffic calming measures. That particular project would then be ranked based on other projects that have been brought to the attention of the town. The town staff and BCRC would make initial ranking, but the final decision on ranking those projects would be by the Planning Commission as proposed in this draft policy. And then the final step would be implementation subject to obtaining funds to do so. And I guess there's one step after that is then evaluating the effectiveness of those measures. So it's really just a formal process where folks in neighborhoods negatively impacted by speed can bring those to the attention, and then we can develop proposed measures to deal with it and make sure that folks in that neighborhood really want those measures. Because again, traffic calming measures are not universally popular and they cost a lot of money, and we want to make sure that the neighborhood that's requesting them is really truly wants them and is understanding what those measures will be. Because once they're put in, they're expensive, and we don't have to take them out due to neighborhood opposition. So that's the policy, certainly far from final. I'm sure there are lots of improvements we could make to it based on public comment and select board input, but that's just kind of a start. I did talk extensively with Mark Anders, a transportation planner, regarding the data collection and analysis, and most of that will be done by BCRC staff. It won't be a significant impact on town staff. We will have to deal with the administrative process of collecting the information from the neighborhood, sending out the petitions, et cetera. But that's well within our area of expertise. We don't have transportation expertise on town staff, so we would look to BCRC to help us with that. There will also probably need to be some design funds in any budget for anything that needs to be engineered. So in addition to those implementation, actual construction budget, there would have to be a design budget as well, and we can certainly talk about that at budget time to get some sort of order of magnitude of what those costs might be. So that's the draft traffic calming policy. Happy to answer any questions you have, but again, very much
So can I
draft.
ask, so could we, I mean, I do have a lot of questions, and I'm thinking, they may need to go back to Mark, they may need to go other places, but I'm wondering if it would make sense to go through the sections and just note questions so that when we look at a first policy, a first draft next time.
So we could
we'll
do
have
that
more
right now,
information?
and I could take notes, or let's look at the minutes, or folks could email me, and I'd make sure that they got to Mark, so when he came to the next meeting, or whatever meeting you want to put this on the agenda, he could have those answers.
Okay. What are
ahead
your
of time.
preferences? Do you want to do this out loud? Do you want to?
Yeah, no, I'd go right through it now.
Okay.
Okay.
I just would caution, I may not have the answers, but
I think you won't have the answers. I mean, I'm just listening to this
Yeah.
and thinking, okay, so Mark is actually the person that probably, and he might need to do some digging too.
Yes.
But I'm thinking if we can just sort of lay out anything that we're wondering why it's done the way it is,
Sure.
then that could help bring a policy forward that maybe, is closer to
Just to be
final.
clear, this is just a suggested policy. There are
Yep.
lots of towns that do it differently, but we thought this would work, given the level of expertise we have at the Regional Commission and the level of staff that we have at the town.
I think if we don't go through it tonight, there'll be a gap in in transfer of information.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, is the thought here to adopt something at the next meeting or to discuss the next meeting?
No, it will be 2 readings. First reading will be next meeting.
Okay.
So it won't be this necessarily. So I think that's why if we can get our questions out now, I think that will help shape this. Because this was sort of Mark's best guess at what could work for a community our size with our particular issues, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got, this is not even, this is just a discussion document.
It's a very preliminary discussion about a possible.
Okay, so I think with that in mind, being a holiday weekend, having staff here on a holiday, and also this not even being voted on today or the next meeting, my thought would be to email Mark our questions and then have them answered at the next meeting so we can discuss further.
Well, if we do
That's my
that,
thought.
then we won't
That's
have a
my thought.
different policy at the next meeting.
And we won't be ready for a first reading.
Yeah, we won't be ready.
Yeah.
Which means that we won't have this in place by budget.
We have a budget deadline coming up in November.
So just a thought, it's not necessary, in fact, we didn't even think we'd have a draft policy the next year, so it's, in order to budget for a pilot project, it's not necessarily need to have every detail of this ironed out. That being said, I don't have any preference about email versus in person. I would say if something comes up, if we do this now, that if something comes up after this meeting, please do email me.
Yep. But I'm thinking since we have more time than we thought we were going to have at this meeting, maybe spending that time.
I have no preference.
Let's see how in the weeds we get, and if it becomes crazy, then we'll back off. Okay. So do we want to go through the policy now, or do we want to have Dan go through the other pieces of data that are in this packet? What's your preference? Do you want to hear the whole shebang, and then come back, or do you want to do the policy and ask our questions?
I think we've seen this data in a couple of different versions.
Not that, the crash data and the, so we have crash data, speed data.
Gotcha.
And maybe they speak for themselves. And something, and information about the speed limit, blinking speed limit signs. So, maybe they speak for themselves. So why don't we talk about the policy? Okay, why don't we do that? All right, Section A, the introduction on traffic calming. I had a question about that. I wanted to ask, I guess I understand traffic calming, what it involves, but I think I would like that first sentence to say that it's for the purpose of encouraging pedestrian and cycling activity, because I think every single neighborhood that has come in to talk about why they don't want cars speeding down their street, it's because they're trying to walk, or they're trying to bike, or there's some pedestrian type activity that we want to encourage. So I just think it would be nice for us to say not only it's going to slow it down, but here's why we want that happening.
I think using the word public safety cuts to the chase.
Well,
we want to make a safe environment, period. That's what I think.
I still wanted to say pedestrian cycling, but I agree with you on public safety. And public safety. Yeah. Okay, so if we can just think about a way to sort of encapsulate why we're doing this, because I think communities have been very, very clear about their worries about jumping into ditches and such.
So Jeannie, I'll only say we did try to be responsive to your comment, because we did make that comment before, and I think that's why the sentence at the end was added. So I guess what I would ask is if you have particular language you would like to put in here, let us know, and we'll put it in the next iteration, and then the board can decide whether it's something they want.
It does address it in the last sentence, but it doesn't have the punch as it would if it was addressed initially.
Anything else on Section A? All right, on to Section B, which is the steps. So, I don't know, in whatever, anyone have questions about steps 1, 2, or 3?
I do on 3.
Okay, so why don't we go, does it matter if we jump around? I mean, I have something on step 1.
We'll do 1, then go right through the...
Okay, step 1, I just want to know under number 3, why the posted speed cannot be more than 35 miles an hour. And I'm thinking specifically of Monument Avenue extension, is that what it is, going out toward Pownell. Someone made a comment, a public comment, saying that that the speed limit was higher than 35 as you're going out there. Is it 30? So it's not higher. So no. It's under.
There's no place on Monument Avenue where the speed limit is over 30.
I'm just thinking, or on South Stream Road, or are there any of the roads that we've been talking about where...
So traffic calming measures like speed tables and speed humps don't work for speeds higher than 35 miles per hour.
Okay, so that's why...
If you're posting at 40 miles per hour, you cannot put those type of... Because it's not safe.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Dan, East Road is 35?
I don't know. I would defer to Stuart on that one. I don't recall what the speed limit is on East Road.
It's 35 unless otherwise posted.
Okay.
And that would be in the school zone where it's actually lower?
And there's probably a lower speed limit in other places along East Road. But generally, the ordinance says speeds on town roads are 35 unless otherwise posted. And we post them at 25, 30 in other places.
Okay, so as long as it, as long as it covers all those roads.
So up to Houghton Lane, you think is still just 35?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, step 2. I have a question about why, so 2,000, so the stretch can't be longer than 2,000 feet in length, which is a third of a mile. So it's not a very long stretch.
So,
is there a reason for that?
Yes, so we've defined, we could have multiple projects in a multiple mile long, but we want to make sure that each project is a size that makes sense and can be done in a reasonable period of time. These are numbers that Mark said that would be appropriate for traffic calming, individual traffic calming designs. So you can ask him why maybe it should be longer, but he felt that if you had a 10,000 foot stretch, then you'd want to define several different, because each section is going to be somewhat different.
So could we, in just this step, so if, just making it up, if East Road, if that community, which is long, I mean, the stretch that has houses on both sides all the way down is longer than a third of a mile. So can this reflect that you could come in with a larger stretch of road, but it would be addressed
Yeah, that's why we put area or areas, but I would certainly make it clear.
I see, wait,
clearer.
okay.
Yeah.
As long as that's what that means, I just didn't get
No,
it.
the idea wasn't limited to say, oh, you can only define a 2,000-foot stretch. It's that if you define a 10,000, we're going to break it up into chunks to
Got
make
it.
it easier
Okay.
to digest.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we can make that better understandable when we get further along, I don't think that the residents of East Road would understand that this policy works for them because their problem is longer than 2,000 feet.
Right. So in other words, we're not going to, if someone brings in a problem area that's 10,000 feet long, we'll break it up into the chunks for them. They don't have to break it. In fact, that's not their job. They're not traffic engineers.
So if the royal we, if we could work on language that just makes it clear that if you have a stretch longer than 2,000 feet, it will be broken into 2,000.
Yeah, we're not going to, so we're not, just to make it clear, maybe we can make this clear in the first
Okay.
We say to report the problem, we only limit it, the roadway is at least 600 feet long. We don't put a maximum amount on it.
Well, it says no more than 2,000
feet.
But that's where that's when the town staff and BCRC evaluates it and breaks it up into chunks.
All right, we will work on language then. All right, we're going to put a period after.
I'm happy.
Area must
I just
be
want to
at least 600
I'm happy
feet
to
in.
try to clarify it, but I just want you to know the intent was
Okay.
not to limit folks.
So that's good.
From
So
letting us know about any length of road.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Can I just go back to something really basic? So the traffic calming policy that we're going through right now, is it really speaking to the methodologies in this brochure? Or other things in addition to that? And I'm going to give you an example. Like
Definitely everything in that brochure could be other measures as well.
Okay, because on my street, this is more than 20 years ago, we petitioned for an additional stop sign as a traffic calming measure. It's nothing as fancy or costly as this. And I just didn't know if this policy would address other issues or if it's really speaking to this.
Or could that be the outcome? Could something more simple be the outcome?
But obviously the idea is to try to do something as cost-effectively as possible. You slowly move up the ladder as some things can't be solved with a simple sign, but it makes sense that you try to, if it's possible, to use the less costly measures first.
I don't know if it would be valuable to say something, what traffic calming measures are in play here or possibilities. It doesn't really address that at all. Maybe this isn't the appropriate document for that, but
I don't think you want to put in specifics in a policy. I mean, maybe do it as an appendix of what possible.
Just put in signage. The traffic calming could include signage, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Or an appendix that says it starts with traffic signs and moves.
Could be as simple as additional speed limit signs at the existing speed limit.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think if you have a persistent problem with speeding, throwing up a couple signs is unlikely to solve the problem. But
it worked on my street.
We would probably do that. We would probably do that before we even got to here. But it's going to be inclusive of that as well. Yes.
Great. Thank you for your patience. All right, step 3. You had something on step 3?
Yeah. A neighborhood support petition. First, it says the petition needs to be signed by 2/3 of the households. But it says if you don't have enough signatures, the town may move forward at its own sole discretion.
Yes.
I think there's so many neighborhoods that want this to be addressed. I really don't want the town to jump ahead and say, we're going to go do this street, make the decision ourselves, when so many other neighborhoods are going to be asking. So why would you have that in there?
So if there's a true safety issue that's been brought to our attention, and we feel that it has to be taken care of, even if the neighborhood is not fully in favor of it, this says that the town has the ability to do that, whether or not the 2/3 is obtained.
Could you give me an example of a street where neighbors wouldn't want this addressed?
Well, even on Monument Avenue, where you had a ton of people come in and explain that they were very concerned about speed, there was at least one gentleman who said he was opposed to speed tables. So if we propose speed tables on Monument, avenue, I don't know if 2/3 of them would agree that that's the appropriate measure. They may say, nope, we're okay with a sign or a radar sign, but we don't want speed tables or speed humps. So
even taking it a step before that, if you don't, this covers you in case you don't get 2/3 of the neighborhood to even support doing anything.
Right. This is just a reservation of rights. The town is not saying we need a vote of every neighborhood to put up a stop sign or whatever, or any other traffic calming measure. But the idea is here, we don't want to spend a lot of money on something in a neighborhood if the neighborhood doesn't want it.
I think for maybe Nancy's concern, and I understand it, gets addressed in priority.
Yeah, so this doesn't say it skips the priority ranking. It still has to go through the ranking and rise to the top. So this doesn't say that it skips that priority ranking.
So it could be a high crash area that needs to be addressed.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's just a simple reservation of rights that says this policy, in no way is this policy limiting the town's legal rights to address a safety issue.
Okay. I mean, coming at this from the back end, if there was a horrifically dangerous stretch of road and the town did nothing and people were getting killed, that's not good.
Yeah.
You know, there might be liability issues there. I don't know.
Anything else on step 3? Step 4, data collection and evaluation. We're good with that one?
I just want to understand that the process will be that the town staff is going to collect and then sort of return that or communicate that data back out to those that need to have it for the decision-making process?
So as part of the proposal, we would have the data backing up the proposal, the design proposal.
So whatever tools are designed to collect that data, and I'm thinking portals, and you know, my feeble brain says, how do you do that? I mean,
so this is one of those points where I wanted to make sure that BCRC had the expertise and the staff time to do it.
Yeah.
So basically, that's why it says this town staff will work with BCRC. Essentially, BCRC is going to do this data collection.
Okay.
They have transportation planner. They have access to VTrans personnel. So they will put out their speed cart, they will put out the traffic collection machines, and then give us the information. And then we'll use it to design the town, BCRC, and probably a design professional will use it to design a proposal, if the data warrants it.
Got it.
I mean, we might go in there and find out, you know, everybody thinks everyone's speeding, but we just put the speed card out there for 10 weeks and nobody's speeding.
We did
unlikely,
see that. No,
possible.
In all fairness, we saw that on Upper Monument Avenue a couple years ago. The average speed was 2 miles over the limit, and it looked like people were flying past.
Yeah. So the
speed cards don't lie.
The data is very important, and it'll help us obviously with the prioritization.
Yep.
Super. Step 5, which is data review and recommendations. So this has at least 2 of these criteria must be met, and I'm assuming that this language, 25% or more vehicles exceed the speed limit by 5 miles an hour, or 10% exceed by 10 miles per hour, or it's a school zone, there's a lot of pedestrian cyclist activity, or mid-block crosswalk, or a high crash area. So those are the general criteria that Mark shared with us earlier, right?
And just to point out, and we're not saying it has to meet all 4, it's just at least 2 in order to get in the queue for prioritization, or to get to the neighborhood for them to decide whether they want us to proceed with prioritization.
Yeah. And so that's going to mean that these communities, if there's not historic data, that a speed cart would have to go out to collect it?
Yeah, that's why, I hesitate to put this in here, but I wanted to manage expectations. That's why I put in step 4. It may take a few months to get that data, because we're going to have to put out the data collection machines, and it may take a while because there may be a lot of other people around the county in the queue. Now, we may be able, if we obtain additional equipment, we might be able to do it faster, but under current conditions, that's not something you put in a request and it happens next week. It's not realistic, given our resources.
Okay. Step 6, neighborhood support.
I got a question on 5.
Oh, sorry.
The design professional, I question if that person would be needed with the town staff, with the BCRC, with the highway guys, with all the information online. I would think we could save a little bit of money there to do more projects and do that ourselves.
So Nancy, as you see, and it says if necessary, so there may be a lot of things we can do without a design professional, but when you're putting things in a roadway, we have to make absolutely sure that it's designed so that it's safe, because we can't have people getting hurt because of something we put in the roadway. It has to meet certain criteria. Now, that being said, I think what will likely happen is we may need a design professional for the first 2 or 3 projects, but then once we have a design that everybody feels comfortable with, we won't need that design professional as much. But there might be unique situations. What if there's a drop-off? And so most of the time we can do most of the design ourselves, but there may be certain aspects of a design that it really is important for us to get an engineer to sign off on so that we're not opening ourselves up to liability.
Okay.
But you agreed that once we do these a few times, the design professional may be much less necessary.
All right. Step 6, neighborhood support. So this is the 2/3 of households affected must sign a second petition, and this is specifically to sign off on
the specific
what
design.
you're recommending as a traffic calming measure.
The first petition is, hey, we really want you to design something for us. The second petition is, oh, we like what you designed. Go ahead and put it in the queue to be ranked and hopefully implemented.
Yeah, and this is where
But again,
the comment that you were concerned about is made.
Without resident approval, and again, I think most of these neighborhoods, you're not going to have a problem getting 2/3. And if one neighborhood is against it, there'll be plenty others that do want it and will support it. But the big thing I want to see at the end of all of this, the final decision should be made by the select board. I don't want the town deciding. It should come to the select board when everything's ready.
We haven't gotten to that step yet, so let's wait.
Yep.
So let's, step 7, yes, so that's in the steps, how this gets determined. Yep. Evaluate effectiveness of traffic calming measures. Okay, so that's...
It's kind of jumping ahead, just if we actually do them, that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to evaluate whether or not it's effective or not.
Yep. Okay, so then we're out of the steps and back to C, priority ranking. So again, the ranking, you've given points for speed and points for traffic, crashes, and activity generators. I had a question about activity generators. So activity generators so school zone gets you 10 points, which is the maximum number of points. Mid-block crossing is a 5, and then pedestrian and bicycle generator is a 5. No sidewalks is a 5, and then public park is a 3. I'm just wondering why sidewalks and pedestrian bicycle trip generator wouldn't be a bigger concern if that's what we're trying to address.
So traffic calming isn't just about cyclists and pedestrians. It's also about crashes, making sure that vehicles are not involved in crashes with each other.
Yeah.
So obviously this can be adjusted. This is not set in stone, and I would defer to Mark as far as how he developed these criteria. I'm definitely out of my depth on that, but these are the types of things that we would be looking at. We can certainly ascribe higher priority to certain things. You may want to ascribe a higher priority to crashes, or maybe you want to ascribe a higher priority to activity generators, or maybe you want to have more points for average daily traffic. That's all going to be something that's going to be discussed prior to you adopting the policy.
Do you know if Mark might be able to give us a couple different policies that different size communities that have done these point values either all the same or differently. It just seems that, I mean, I just keep thinking about on South Stream, on Monument, and on East Road, everyone was talking about having to, because there are no sidewalks, having to jump into ditches. It just felt like on streets like that, even if you slow down, you need to slow the traffic down a lot in order for pedestrians or bicyclists to feel.
So again, it's all about the community's priorities.
So I don't know if there's...
There's no exact science on this, and I'm sure Mark can speak more intelligently on it than I can, but I can tell you that there is no set formula about how you prioritize these projects.
Well, if he could just show us a couple different policies that sort of give different weights to things, so we could
certainly, and Mark
think about what that matters.
This is his.
It's his area.
It's his expertise, and he would be happy to talk to you about this in excruciating detail.
In step 7 on C, why would the Planning Commission be involved?
So the Planning Commission is a commission that deals with community issues, and ultimately the Select Board will decide whether or not to fund the projects, and if there's anybody aggrieved with the priority, that the Select Board will decide. We could certainly make it the Select Board's decision to review the rankings, and that would probably make the Planning Commission happy, because then they wouldn't have to do it, because they would take this very seriously, and I'm sure they'd spend a lot of time making sure that it was done well. However, if the Select Board wants to be the one who looks at the priorities that are developed by the staff and makes the final determination, that's, again, this is your policy. You guys tell us how to do it.
I just think rather than adding another group into it, I would think between the town and the BCRC, they could get it to us.
And Nancy, I have no opposition to that. It's just I know that sometimes the board is very busy, and they would like for other committees to take a crack at getting these things to you first in an organized way, but
Right,
I personally have no preference if it's the Planning Commission or the Select Board, or if it's the Planning Commission and then the Select Board. Ultimately, you folks have to fund these things, so whatever comes before you, it's your final decision how these things get funded.
Right, so we will have the final decision because we have the purse strings. And quite frankly, again, our job is not to figure out where the curb cuts happen or which street. I mean, if there's a process, then there's a ranking, then the reason to have something as detailed as this, where you get points for all these different things, is so that it is not arbitrary.
That's worth saying again. This policy, once it's fleshed out and agreed upon, makes the decision about how speeding is addressed. This board wouldn't need to. The Planning Commission would simply enforce, and if it's planning, implement and enforce the policy that this board already signed off on.
And then we need to, because we'll need to put money in the budget every year.
Correct.
In order to do traffic calming measures, because as you've shown us, they cost.
Yeah, right. And just to Nancy, to your point, we could get a list of 10 projects. They could be listed 1 to 10. They come to you folks. You guys decide which ones you want to fund. Maybe the first 3 projects are so expensive you can't even fund them, and you start with number 4, and then you pick number 7. That's ultimately you as the elected body gets to make that decision. We're just trying to set up a process where folks can have a feeling that there's a process that's fair and thoughtful and is based on a policy, as opposed to strictly how many people show up in a room and push for a project.
And I guess I'd also be looking from the Planning Commission what their proposal is, what they would like, separate from what the neighborhoods are talking about.
So that will probably not be a Planning Commission function, because they're not traffic engineers. So they're going to be looking at the priority to make sure that the staff and the BCRC have gotten the priority ranking correct.
Then here's my concern, and it's the bike paths that I've tried to get answers about for 5 or 6 years. I don't want groups continuing to plan where they want the bike paths in Bennington without somebody coming in and giving a presentation.
This is not about bike paths in any way.
I think it will be tied to that. And I think this is going to have to be a public discussion.
Well, I mean, this is going to be at least 2 hearings before it's adopted, so there will be public comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so anything on the rest of it? Data collection, D is appeals, so it can be appealed to the select board. Funding, it has to be in the budget. I have a question about that. Given it's going to take this long, it seems to be we would want to review these in the spring. So the ranked traffic calming requests, so that means you need to start a year ahead of time in order to get to the fall. So you're saying in the fall, the street would have been gone through this whole process by then.
I mean, so basically the way we say in the fall, we could change that. We could just say annually. But basically, it's once the priority list is completed each year, it goes to you folks, and you decide whether you want to fund it or not. That's what the proposed policy says. I guess this is your policy. You guys can put in it whatever you want.
So do you see people like saying, okay, it's open for proposals, everybody that wants to have traffic calming measures, put your proposal in?
I think it'll be a rolling.
Or is it a rolling?
It's rolling. As they come in, we'll rank them, put them in the queue, and you guys will have them. We'll post them on. We can post them on the website so people can see what the current rankings are. This is not. Oh, we're going to wait till September 1st before we look at all these things. No, we'll go through and rank them as they come in. And something might start off at number 1, and then something more important would kick it down. That's very possible throughout the year.
Yeah.
If a resident comes to us or any other body to talk about speeding on their street in October, the chances of that getting funded are nil.
Correct.
So you are talking about...
Next October.
Right. So it's really a year, this is back to your expectation comment at the beginning. We're really talking about a year out after the issue is raised.
If it's something that requires funding. Significant funding, yes. I mean, you might say, we're going to put $200,000 in the budget this year for traffic calming, and you may not have projects ranked already, but you're going to just put the number in there, and then we would just come to you as those projects come in, and if you want us to spend the money on those, we can. But it's really, I would see it more likely every year around budget time, you identify the projects you want to fund, and then those get built in the next construction season. But again, it could happen any way you want.
Got it. Okay. So that's something for all of us to be thinking about.
Yep, I understand. Thank you.
All right. So other things that Dan can take back to Mark, and we'll ask from the board, and then we'll ask the public if they have questions on this. Yes, Nancy?
When I compare the list that the BCRC provided, using 4 years and 10 years worth of data, and then I look at the police department list, I think the police department list really covers the major issues. Every town for 40...
Can we stay on the policy first, and then we'll move on to the crash data and the speeding data.
Okay.
But I think let's do that. Any comments from the public? Yeah, Shirley, please come up.
Shirley Adams, Bennington resident. The policy is great, but I think one of the things, and I don't know that it belongs in the policy, but something to consider is some sort of reporting mechanism, maybe on the town website, of issues reported, so it doesn't happen multiple times, so people can understand the status of it, especially if things are going to take a long time. People know that it's in the works.
In process.
Yeah.
That's a
The other
great...
thing, if they're simple issues and it's just putting up a sign, I think those are important to report on also, just from a communication standpoint, and, gives credibility to the process.
And they get treated, if they're easy, they get treated that way. We resolve that by doing X. It's not stuck in the queue.
And I think that's a positive that outweighs, that, kind of counterweights the
So I'm wondering if under data collection and evaluation, Shirley, are you saying you would imagine, like, Project X on South Stream Road, it would say step, it would show you what step they were on so that people can follow it?
And if it's been resolved because it was such a simple thing, that it resolved in what the resolution was.
Yeah.
I think there's a way of kind of counterbalancing the long-term project with short fixes to
Well,
make the public feel they've been responded to.
That would be nice, because what I see, I mean, it takes time to write something out that says, put new stop sign on, X road, and, things are good now. But it is important, because then it's sort of like it gets checked off, but it doesn't get acknowledged as something that actually somebody took the time to do it.
Yeah. And also, I think we'll if there's history there and a perceived issue's been reported and acted on, and 2 years later, it's really the same issue, you might want to say, well, we addressed this once, is it worth addressing it again, or is it really the same issue that we're going to come to the same solution on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dan?
So a couple of things. So we can certainly post online the complaints as they come in and whether or not they've begun the process and where their status is. I will say we already have a very formal process for complaints. So if someone calls in with a complaint, we fill out a form, we send it to the appropriate department head or supervisor. They then look into it and they respond to the person that filed the complaint. So if somebody says, hey, I need a stop sign here, that's going to fill out a complaint. It's going to go to RJ or Walt or Dickey, and then they're going to go look at it. They may talk to the town manager and say, hey, should we put a stop sign here? And so then they'll get back to that property owner. So I don't want people to think that if they make a complaint, they have to wait until we rank it, whether or not it gets installed. If it's something simple, or if it's something we can address right away, or within current budgeting parameters, we're just going to do it. It's just how we do things.
Let me just say, I think Shirley's point might have been, or part of it might have been, I call and I say, I think there needs to be a stop sign here, and somebody else calls and says they're speeding. I don't know what to do about it. I'm not an expert. That's the same issue. Post that it's been raised, and then show the public the process that's being followed.
Yep. No, I think we can certainly post status on any of those things. Yeah. I just didn't want anybody to think that they make a complaint and it doesn't get acted on right away.
Oh, yeah, no. I think it's more that my frustration is that you guys act really quickly and you resolve it, and then you check it off and you go on to the next thing, and
nobody knows.
And nobody knows you did it except the person that cared about it. And
the person who made the complaints does know about it, because we do contact them.
Yeah.
If I may, I should note that the placing of stop signs is generally, unless it's an emergency situation, is generally the responsibility of this board to change the traffic ordinance.
Yep.
So, and you brought that up before, so probably you should include the traffic ordinance in our next packet, okay?
We'd be glad to.
Because I don't know that have I ever seen the traffic ordinance?
And one of the things that each stop sign needs to pass meet what's called the warrants for that BCRC will do for us to determine whether or not a stop sign is warranted under the state V-Trans specifications.
And that's what's going to happen with the concerns that have been.
If someone has raised a stop sign issue and we think that it's a possibility that it could even meet some are just not going to meet. A lot of people think stop signs are a great way to slow traffic down, and they're not necessarily the best way to slow traffic down, and they're not necessarily safe in all situations. So that's why they have to be evaluated, because if you just put a stop sign up everywhere, there are lots of repercussions to that may not be a positive outcome. So
you do have a couple requests.
Yeah. I mean, the safest thing to do is not to drive, to walk or whatever. But so that's why you have to evaluate everything to see if it makes sense or not.
Okay, so we've given you feedback on the policy, but I think just walk back to Nancy's comment. What we also have are crash data. And we also have speeding data, right? So, and
I apologize. I was not prepared to make a presentation tonight because I did not think that one would be requested, so I'm doing this a little bit on the fly.
Sorry.
So I just want to apologize. I'd be much more prepared if I had known that there was a presentation.
You're doing an excellent job.
So I'm doing the best I can, and I apologize
Okay.
if I'm not as organized as I would expect
So we
myself
do
normally to
have,
be.
so we have crash data from
So yeah, I'll go through
BCRC, and we have speeding.
They gave us the 10 sites in Bennington that have the highest severity ratings for crash data, and that's a certain formula that VTrans uses, but you can see those different locations, the top 10, so to speak. It's interesting.
Over a 10-year period?
I believe so.
Yeah, but the 2012 to 2016 high crash locations.
4-year period. That's the unfortunate thing, is that this detailed crash data stopped being collected in 2016. But we do have some additional information from 2014 to 2024 as well. And so you can see the top 10. You can also see these maps, which are a bit, if you take some time, they are very useful, but they're not immediately easy to see what's going on there. But if you look very carefully at the legend, you can see, and basically anything that's got color on it or black is a place that we should be looking at. And it pretty much lines up with what I think we've been hearing from folks.
On this page, it says 2014 to 2024.
Yep. So that's the data those are more recent data. And you'd have to ask Mark where that more recent data came from.
Okay.
2024 is not over yet.
Right. 2024 to date.
Yeah.
But you can see there's one that's out that shows the whole town, and one that's focused on the more downtown area. And those are the high crash areas in Bennington, both in a list and on the map. And so it's interesting that the folks the roads on this that are shown by the data to be problems are mostly the same roads that folks are complaining about. So it lines up pretty closely, which that isn't always the case, but in this case it is. So that's just great. And then, as Nancy mentioned, we did ask the chief and lieutenant to give us their thoughts, and also lines up pretty well with what we're seeing from folks and from the crash data. So to Nancy's point, lots of overlap, and we have some local information here.
There really isn't a lot of overlap. That's what concerns me. I think it's a much more comprehensive list that we're aware 30 or 40. I mean, I'm surprised. We've been very lucky in recent years. And does the police department feel they have the support of this board to give out speeding tickets?
They got a grant, and they have been giving them out like water. I see them all the time now. They got a grant, so they are out there.
But he commented in here, they really used to do it and cut back, and now they're not quite staffed. But
It's significantly less traffic enforcement than in previous years, or they're ramping up again, given that folks are asking for that to happen.
I got the sense that that's a post-COVID ramp up too.
Yeah. During COVID, there was a strong push, for whatever reason, for police departments not to engage in active traffic.
Well, they didn't want to stick their face in somebody else's car.
Probably part of it, yes.
Oh, all right. I thought it was before that.
It may have started before that, Nancy, but it continued through COVID, yes. So in any event, traffic Clark, sorry.
I just have a question here. My standard acronym complaint. What is PDO count? What are we talking about?
It's personal. It's actually defined in here. It is personal, like hitting a house or hitting a car.
Where are we looking? I'm sorry.
On the crash data, it's PDO count, as opposed to injury count or fatal account. So PDO was
Is that property damage?
Yes, that's it. P for property.
Property damage?
Property damage. Yeah, and it is defined in here.
I just didn't see anything.
Which is the only reason I would know it.
PDO in here.
Yeah.
Where might I find that?
Yeah.
One of those
property damage on one of your charts here.
Property damage only, right? And that's one of those things that
property damage
Mark
only.
would be able to say off the top of his head, and I did not have that one off the top.
And what is nice is that most of the damage is property damage.
Yes.
As opposed to there are no fatal crashes, which is fantastic.
That is.
amazing. All right, but yeah, so I think it reinforces what we've heard, the people that are coming out saying that speeding is a problem.
Speeding is a problem
It's
on
also
these
where the
roads.
crashes are. Yeah, and then,
So
we're going to get a second mobile unit, right? That's what I understood from the
That's my
police
understanding
department?
from the chief,
Yep.
that there's a second mobile unit that will be obtained within the next 6 months or so. So that'll be great. We can double our capacity in that case. We do also have in the packet of information some cost data for what they're calling speed-aware radar speed signs, and it looks like they're anywhere from a low end of $3,000 up to $4,000 or $5,000. So we'd have to determine which one is most appropriate for whatever application we're using, but that gives you kind of a range of what it would cost per sign to install these speed-aware radar speed signs, as they're called. And Mark was able to collect that data for us.
But you sure don't save much when you buy more than one.
No, a little bit, but not a lot. Nice thing about those, they can go almost anywhere because they are solar. Most of them are solar actuated. Also, Mark was able to find some information about what construction costs were for speed tables, and you can see, they're anywhere from $5,500 in-house to $8,000 contracted. I would suspect that's probably low, given this is probably not something that was published within the last 6 months or so. But in the event, gives you an order of magnitude of each speed hump or speed table.
And would we think that if we approved having a series of speed humps, that we would also make the assumption we were going to try and do it in-house?
Yes. That would be my assumption, given the expertise that we have.
So that would be part of the budgetary decision-making
You could
as well.
save
What can we
significant
do?
amounts of money by doing it in-house,
Yeah.
yes. Yep.
Yeah, and just, that's our bandwidth.
Okay.
All right.
So that's the cost data that we were able to gather. Also included in the packet was the traffic calming comments to the select board to date, and we will certainly make sure we collate those and get those dealt with as we move forward. You've already seen this, but I included the traffic calming guide just so folks have an idea of what typical traffic calming measures are. Again, not all inclusive, but the most common traffic calming measures are included in that. And I think that concludes the data that mostly Mark supplied, and we have the information from the PD.
I think this is great, and I do hope that the public will go in and look at this and give us feedback.
That is on I know Jonas said he posted it already on our website, all this information, correct? Yeah. So it's all up there. People can look at the draft policy. They can look at the cost figures, the so-called heat maps for the crash data. It's all up there.
Quick question in response to comments. If there are comments made about areas, the very first one in this packet addresses speed on Route 7 that the town doesn't control.
Yep, that is a state highway.
Is there a mechanism to respond to that comment so that that person doesn't think this board that there's any action pending on this board? We can't do anything about Route 7.
So I think what we'll probably do is make sure that each one of those comments get a response. I know that Jonah often responds to comments as they come in. I don't know if you had a chance to respond to that one yet. But yeah.
And you shared that that isn't an item that the town could take up. I don't mean to put you on the spot, Jonah.
In that case, when I checked the traffic ordinance on the town's website, it does talk about a speed zone starting at the Greenberg Reserve, excuse me. And I noticed that the actual signage starts after that, so I did have a conversation with Stuart to see if we can approach the state about bringing that in alignment with our current ordinance. So the good news is, depending on what we find out from the state, that might be an example of a low-hanging fruit to get that at least moved back, not all the way they wanted. They were suggesting back to Carpenter Hill Road, but it may be that we have an avenue to at least extend it back to the Greenberg Reserve. So that's an example.
Good job.
That's
Excellent.
terrific. Yeah.
Although, Stuart, our roadway responsibility doesn't start until much further into town, correct?
That's correct. That would be a state, they would move the sign.
So the state would have to agree to do that.
Yes.
So even though the select board can advocate for that, we don't have the authority to post it.
So back to my initial question, does this person know that we don't have the authority to do that, but that we are taking steps to?
I don't know if you've responded to them.
I was waiting to hear back from Stuart before, but I have been in kind of regular contact with a couple of people in that area.
Okay, so the answer is yes, we're communicating with people that raise these issues. Thank you.
Great.
I also don't want to lose sight of, we're thinking about these speed tables and speed, whatever they're called. Sometimes it seems like there may be a different solution that is far less expensive, such as removing the center line of a street.
Yep. As we mentioned before, we're going to look at the most cost-effective solutions first, not just go right to the speed table of the speed. Even though they're really cool, if we can do it for a less expensive way, that's what we're going to do.
That's a very good point. We talked about some things that were a little bit less expensive, a little bit less obtrusive, like removing center lines, bringing in shoulder lines. Yeah.
And those are some things that are such a low budget impact. We would probably try those first to see if we believe that they could be effective before we went through, trying to design a project that's going to cost several $1,000s. So.
Great. All right.
I wonder if it wouldn't be beneficial to start posting, find someplace on the town website, post the comments from the citizens without their names.
Aren't the comments already on the website?
Yeah.
Oh, are they already posted?
With their names.
So the public can read them?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
the names will all be personal information redacted.
Yeah.
But the names are.
Because it's.
And can they see your answer? So if somebody asks about Route 7 or Route 9 and you respond, everybody else could say, okay, I don't need to, the town can't do anything about that.
That does not happen, because there is no official response.
That sort of goes to what Shirley raised earlier.
But I guess the question is, when you get a response, will you then put something on the website in response to that question? I think that's the question.
I'm trying to stop 12 people from contacting you about the same issue.
Yeah, no, actually, I would encourage 12 people to contact about the same issue at this stage, because we're trying to understand also how widely held are these concerns. So at this stage, for something like the traffic calming, we are just compiling those comments, and the assumption is those comments will be addressed at the end of the process when we have those answers. Whenever possible, if there is an answer that's immediately available, I do respond with that. But other things like the Charter Review Committee, again, they're providing comments. We're compiling them. Those are all available on the website, but I would look to the Charter Review to provide the specific answers to those. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. Are we finished with traffic calming and poor Dan?
And I'll bring back the expert next time so he can answer your questions.
Sorry, I think,
much better than I can. So.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Are we still able to follow the same process of
2 meetings?
2 meetings, this one not included?
This one not included.
Gotcha.
This was purely a discussion,
Thank
so
you
we'd be
very
ready
much.
for it.
Thank you.
Okay, manager's report.
Thank you. I have just one action item for you tonight. It has to do with the general highway map that the state of Vermont produces. Very briefly, in 1967, highway number 110 or 137 was discontinued. I show it to you on a section of the town highway map. It runs along, or practically follows, the old Corkscrew Railroad, but it was discontinued in 1967. Unfortunately, it was brought to my attention that it was never removed from the state highway maps. In order for it to be effectively removed, these folks are asking that the board adopt the resolution that has been prepared for you, basically indicating that the action by the board in 1967 is being confirmed. It has been confirmed in the town land records. Unfortunately, we need to go through this process because there is some title insurance issues that are hanging out there, and until this is resolved, we need formal action by the board. So I'm asking for you folks to sign, vote to approve the resolution, and I'll circulate for signature.
And all of the neighbors around these properties agree with this? There's no question?
There's absolutely no question.
Okay, no, that's fine.
Someone like to make the motion?
So moved, what he said.
A second?
Second motion to approve.
Thank you.
Second motion to confirm the Highway 110 and number 137 was discontinued in 1967.
Get up. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Who said aye? Sarah, Jeannie, Ed, Clark, and Jean.
And Nancy.
And Nancy, okay.
Thank you.
Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, we're good.
And I just have one other reminder. This coming Wednesday is your second listening session at 6 p.m. in this facility. And because of the holiday today, we'll be issuing an agenda tomorrow morning first thing. So we have our 24-hour notice.
If I may, please, a couple of folks have expressed concerns with the brevity. They're wondering if this could in fact be scheduled longer than 1 hour. One of the concerns I heard was, well, I don't want to sit there for an hour and all of a sudden not get a chance to speak because there were a bunch of other folks ahead of me. So I kind of would like to leave that as open-ended. If we've got 6 people who want to speak, I'd be hard-pressed to say, well, see you in a couple of months.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. It would go as long as the board needed to go. We cut the last one short because we were on a short time frame for that one. Other people had commitments. So this could go until all questions and concerns are raised.
Is that agreeable to everyone on the board?
Yeah, I actually may be slightly late. I have a conflict, so.
And also, the next one in December is 4 or 5 days before Christmas. Could we move that back a week or two? Because
we can take that up. Okay, so we'll put December, the listening session for December on the next agenda then.
Upcoming agenda item.
Yeah. Okay. Although, okay. And so Stu, in the meanwhile, will you also look at, I know you picked days that the room was available.
That's
so,
true.
Yeah, so could you look for some other dates that
be glad
the room
to.
might be available?
Be glad to.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Nope, we skipped something. Stu has some information about the money for the tennis courts at the rec center.
Yes.
Well, he has a bunch of informational things here.
Well,
so, yeah. You had moved on to other agenda items, so that's why
okay. I thought you were.
Yeah. So, Stu, are you finished?
Sure. I'd be glad to talk about it. Nancy brought this to my attention, questioned the funding of the tennis courts resurfacing. Back in September, October of 2023, we've been receiving complaints from the tennis coach at the high school about the condition of the courts. I believe, Jeannie, you may have even brought me some additional complaints from people who were trying to use them.
Yep.
At the time, we did not have sufficient funds in the budget to resurface them. We did have some funds that were left over from the, I would call it the old YMCA board, about some $5,000 or $6,000 that they gave to us when they dissolved to be used for tennis courts. We had used a chunk of it some years ago, so we had that money available to us. The finance director and I went looking for additional funds. At that point, we had received the ARPA funds. We felt that that would be a useful use of them, and we used the ARPA funds to pay the balance. Unfortunately, or fortunately, the board then made the decision to commit those funds to other projects. So we then went back to look, and we are using capital reserves to replace those funds in the ARPA reserve.
Can you just clarify whether it's ARPA funds or pennies for parks? The memo has pennies for parks in it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think we used ARPA funds, but if the memo says pennies for parks, I've jumped the gun because my finance director knows where the money's came from.
Okay.
Question time? Who is the former Southshire YMCA?
At the time, it was Mark Kevorkian and Gordon Black were the two remaining trustees of the funds.
This is the old YMCA where the Chinese restaurant is?
This is.
No, that's not the Bennington YMCA.
Can you please let him answer?
This was the Southshire YMCA, what was left of the YMCA that one time existed on Main Street, began the construction of the recreation center, ran out of funds, also operated the lands at the what became the Y pool, the lands that came to us by deed from the Y, as well as the Y woods, which came to us by deed from the Y when it could no longer function.
So where has that money been parked for 50 years that no one was aware of?
It was parked in a reserve fund in the general fund when it came to us. We have been using it to maintain and work on the tennis courts as we were asked to do by the trustees of the Southshire Y.
Okay, but when the Bennington Y went out of business, 1970 or whatever, they had no money left. And we've done multiple things through the years where if there was money tucked away in an account, why didn't we use that money? I mean, how?
We didn't have it at that time. This came to us when the Southshire YMCA ultimately dissolved.
There was never a Southshire YMCA, Stu.
Obviously, there was, Nancy. I can't.
Well, how did?
I didn't create it.
Okay, how did Mark Kevorkian? I mean, the Y has been gone. So how did they get?
Mark Kevorkian and Gordon Black were the two remaining trustees of the Southshire YMCA. They had funds in an account that they decided they were going to turn over to the town as long as we would use them, specifically at the tennis courts, if I remember correctly. Now, Mark is no longer in town. Gordon, I believe, is working in the town of Manchester. I could check with him to find out what those dates were, but it was quite some time ago, Nancy. Not the 1970s, though.
Are you saying the money was more recent?
Yes.
So then where was the money generated?
I don't know.
Because we've had no Y for 50 years. In fact, several years ago, we were told we couldn't restart our Bennington branch. That's why the North Adams Y came to Bennington. Another question. How much do you charge the school system a year to use our pool and tennis courts? I've never heard that number.
They pay for pool use now. We do not charge them for the tennis courts and never have.
Well, I think for the amount of money our taxpayers pay and have paid for 50 years, and that's a town facility to benefit the people of Bennington, we have to start getting some rent. When the elementary schools consolidated, now we've got kids from 4 or 5 towns. None of the other towns help us pay. I don't understand, well, where are the other questions I've got on here? You know, I've been asking for 2 years for this board to have a discussion. The $500,000 worth of work the board found out in late 2021 our taxpayers have to pay at the rec center. Nobody wants to talk about
Nancy,
it.
we've had that conversation. It has been asked and answered,
Jeannie,
and you are incorrect.
No one has ever provided a list.
You are incorrect in your assumptions, and
No one has ever provided a list.
It has been answered repeatedly. You are confusing. You
I'm
are
not confusing anything.
the initial plans for expanding the rec center with what we ended up doing at Ben High. And this has been asked and answered repeatedly. But please,
and I asked,
are you on the manager's report?
I am.
Then stay on the manager's report,
okay.
please.
Well, I asked for this to be on the agenda twice. The email I got 6 weeks ago said Mr. Kevorkian, the account had been closed. I think it was just under $25,000 went to the tennis courts. Additional money went to pennies for parks, but didn't tell me how much. So the 3 different answers I've gotten don't match up. And I asked all last year. I said, why can't we take the money our taxpayers have in the pennies for parks, use it to pay some of the work we have to do at the rec center?
So Nancy, I don't really want you to go down that road, because then you're having a conversation that is not in any way warned. I'm wondering, Stu, could you check in with Gordon?
No, it's pennies for parks.
But can you check in with Gordon on the dates or whatever and write up a memo?
I'll try to.
Thank you.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. All right.
And we did go out to bid on the tennis courts, right?
Yes, we got 2 prices. One from a company that could not perform, and we got a second price from a company that could. But they couldn't perform at that time, so they had to wait till the following season.
All right. Clark, did you have a question on the manager's report?
Well, I was waiting until discussion moved on.
Well, I just didn't know how you use pennies for park monies at the rec center without the select board approving it. Or ARPA money. Which does it say in here used?
There's actually the pennies for parks that we grabbed, yes.
Okay. Clark?
So, I took note of your comment here on the VLCT municipal response to homelessness crises. And one of the things that always confounds me, having spent my life dealing with emergency medicine, is when I hear the term crisis, I think something acute that needs immediate action. And I was hoping in reading that somehow we can make public statement in terms of crisis versus chronicity. From what I'm reading, a lot of these are chronic, long-term issues. They're not acute issues. So that's all. I just find using the term crises
I think maybe it's because there are 2 things happening. The reason that the response to the homelessness crisis is happening now is because the motel voucher program had switched back to the old rules, and the emergency winter homeless shelter rules aren't in effect yet. So there was actually there were a large number of people who were turned out of motels, and that became a crisis because they ended up needing someplace to be, and there was no easy place for them to be. So I think you're right. Homelessness is definitely not it's not it just happened problem. This is a chronic issue at this point, but there was a specific crisis when the motel voucher program went back to its old rules, and a lot of people, including a lot of families, were turned, and people with disabilities were turned out of motels. So I think that was and the hope was that something fast would happen, and nothing happened. Right?
That's pretty much the answer, yes.
Yeah.
Crisis is not my term. It's the term that the LCT managers group pulled together.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm not attributing it to any board
I understand.
member. I'm just saying in general term, again, as I said, my life has been, when I see a crisis, I move now, don't talk about it. And we do a lot of talking about it, not us, but in general, it sounds like a long-term pharmacity in places.
Okay, anything else on the manager's report?
Nothing else.
Okey-doke. Upcoming agendas, so traffic calming is on the next agenda, and depending on what else is on there, maybe the online commenting draft policy can come back. I think we'll just have to see what we've got in terms of time on the agenda. All right, other business. Whose turn is it to start first? I've lost track. You started first. Nancy, we might be back to you.
Banner recently had an article. I guess there are some people questioning how we choose who we're appointing to boards and committees, and I think it might be something we would put on an agenda item.
What article was that?
Wasn't there one a couple of weeks ago?
Not that I saw.
I'm sorry?
Oh, the bigraph, no.
Yeah,
So
it
they,
wasn't-
no, so Jim Therian was not questioning how we appoint boards. He was asking for biographical information, it's a point well taken. The problem is, unlike, you gave us an example, SVSU, those are appointments to positions. So we can put it on an agenda. I think the issue we're grappling with is when people apply to be on a board or commission, some people write, "Hi, I'd like to be on a board. Let me know." And that is literally what we get. We interview everyone that applies, regardless of whether they give us a resume, and some people give us a resume and a cover letter that is amazing. Other people, I mean, literally, we've got one going, "Hey, Stu, can I be on a board?" Or, "I want to be on this board." I think that was the framing. I mean, it's all over the place. So the problem is trying to figure out how to do that. So I think that's probably a board discussion. If we want to require that, we may cut some people out who don't know how to put together a resume or a paragraph.
I don't think it's a resume. I think it's just basics.
Well, you have seen 3 rounds of letters now, and you know that some of them are like.
And I have to say, I'm surprised that we don't ask anything even basic from people.
We ask that they fit the requirements.
Yeah.
That's our obligation. We ask that they fit the requirements.
And then when we meet with them, that's when we ask a set of questions. But none of us can write up like a 2-sentence from like, you know, we don't have the responsibility for writing up. So I think if anything, the final question would be, can you submit 2 sentences? But generally the turnaround time is
So if I could just jump in here, I
don't know.
might say that I understand where Mr. Therian is coming from. I might suggest that, though, it is part of the process of reporting on who is sitting on boards and commissions. In Jim's realm, not in ours. That's where I stand with that. But if it's not provided to us.
What we could do, though, is ask if we could share their email with you, because that is, we can't share it without their approval. And so
then
we
they're
could
reachable
add
to you.
that question, and then you could reach out to them and get the information.
We would need their permission to do that, yeah.
Okay, so.
My question on that point is, when do these letters or letters of interest become a matter of public record? Once they send them to us for action?
They never become, they don't become public record because they're appointees as opposed to elected. And so you know, if it turns out one person applies and they turn out not to be qualified, you don't want to embarrass them by saying, Joe Schmo applied and it turned out he didn't have any historic preservation background, so we couldn't, you know, or he lives in Tennessee or whatever. So we don't, those are not public. That's why all of this is done in executive session. And then we only release the names of those who we've chosen, so we do not in any way embarrass those who are not.
Process, once these individuals have been selected or appointed to these positions, the paper trail is not a public record?
This board historically has treated appointments as personnel matters, so that is why the board has kept these matters private, and how the information on those who are appointed is released, I think, is something this board needs to deal with.
So we can, okay, so we'll put this on an agenda, but it sounds like we could do something that would get you access to individuals, and that would take care of it. Okay, all right. So, but in no way was the banner questioning our process for,
Well, I didn't know if citizens were...
No.
Okay.
No.
I don't recall the Berkshire Y CEO being at a meeting since late 2020 during the shutdown. Maybe, I know the woman who had dealt with Bennington got done in December. I'm not sure if the interim one was hired, but we're long overdue to hear from the CEO. Could you invite him to one of our...
her or him, yeah, we can do that. We have, as you can see, we had one agenda item and we're at 8:10. We've been trying to get BCRC and the GROW program at the chamber on an agenda, and, like, unless we can rein ourselves in so that we don't go miles over agenda item times.
We also have representation from the Y who come in and report with us on a regular basis. So
but everybody who
Let me
works...
finish, Nancy, please. I didn't interrupt you. If we had questions for someone further up the ladder, I would think that those questions could be posed to that person. I'm not saying that we shouldn't absolutely invite that person. I'm suggesting that we do have access because we have a local person who reports to us regularly.
Yes, and the last time that Jess came in, I think, was when we renewed the contract. I think that was the reason. But we'll look at YMCA, but definitely BCRC, Economic Development, and the GROW program are in front of that.
We were told last year we had no contract with the Y from January to June. Well, for the amount of money the taxpayers paid them, they were able to keep all the money from the memberships and the day passes, and they got grants. We should have had a contract.
Again, you miss, your information is inaccurate. And
Absolutely
this has been asked and answered so many times, I can't even believe you just raised it. This is not true. It is not true, and we will... YMCA is in a queue, but right now, we can't even get through you on other business to adjourn the meeting.
Jeannie, I've been asking probably 4 years publicly for the information to be released that our town recreation used to release. Nobody wants to provide us with that information.
What information are you even talking about?
How much money is the pool and rec center
Can we please
generating?
finish with other business? You guys can talk amongst yourselves. I really am not going to listen to this again.
Last thing. The town purchasing policy that the select board adopted 5 years ago, I would urge Bennington residents to go online to the town website select board page, read the policy. I read it about 2 months ago. I have a lot of concerns, so I urge citizens to read the policy yourself.
Great. Sarah?
Yes, thank you. So tonight we amended agenda, and the subject was Ben High Development Agreement. That was a 1-hour subject. I have concerns about that. I have concerns about our meetings. They are running very long. That subject was 1 hour long. Right now, we are 8:15. Without that. Thank you, please. Right now, without that amendment, we were going to end at 8:20. We are at 8:15 right now. I have concerns that if these meetings are going to run this long, we are not going to have people that are going to come to present our meetings. We are not going to have people that are going to run for select board. I urge our select board to end earlier, even with that ending at 8:20. We need to end much earlier than that. I have concerns about me resigning. That is public right now. I'm putting that out there. I urge our select board to end these meetings earlier. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Ed?
I have one comment that's positive. We have in our packet tonight a memo that Cassie Barbeau completed the requirements for certified Vermont clerk from the Vermont Municipal Clerks and Treasurers Association, so I'd like to publicly congratulate her for doing that work and thank her for what she does in our town clerk's office. That's all I have.
Thank you. Clark?
I want to say to the people of Bennington, thank you for electing me, and if you want me to be here till 3 o'clock in the morning to do your business, I signed up for it. In case, come to think of it, I have been up at 3 o'clock in the morning doing town business. I understand other people have lives, but I'm here to tell you that I'm prepared to spend whatever time it takes to do what needs to be done for the people of Bennington.
Jean?
I actually have something positive to say as well. I would like to publicly thank MSK, Goldstone Architects, and if there are other businesses that reside in the train station, I just want to publicly thank you for your patience with the construction of the skate park. Everyone knows I'm ecstatic about that, and I know that this can't be fun with the dust and the noise and everything else that you've been dealing with, and I just want to publicly thank you for your patience and your support of this community-based project.
Thank you very much. All right, well, we were also asked to share information from the rescue squad, from the Bennington Rescue Squad. And there are 3 federal bills. One is S3236, and I'm going to ask that we put this memo from the rescue squad in, and Bill Camarda in the minutes, all right, so I'll give you this. But there are 3 bills. One would require Medicare to reimburse emergency medical systems for care provided that does not result in transport, which we've heard is a major loss of revenue for them. If they go to someone's house, help them get back into bed, or if they've fallen, but they don't transport them, they don't get reimbursed. There's another federal bill that would extend specialized rate increases for ground ambulance services, and that would be helpful because it's for rural ambulances. And then there's a third one that that requires Medicare to compensate for services that are provided without transport that keep patients out of hospital emergency departments. So there is stuff that we can do to help advocate for a rescue squad, and they desperately need us to be partners with them in this. So with that, I will look for a motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.